It's clear that this season has been a very special one for the Mets. And on Wednesday, David Stearns said that this isn't a fluke. So, Joe, how do you think David Stearns views the season for the Mets, regardless of how they finish down the stretch?
Well, I think satisfactory, like, it's like exceed expectations, satisfactory, or did not meet expectations. This is what he expected. I mean, he's on record talking to Andy Martino back in spring training and all of the media availability that he did. He believed that this was a team that could contend for a playoff spot and play meaningful games in September. And we are here, September 5th. The Mets are clearly a playoff contender, half a game out of the third wildcard spot, and playing very meaningful games in September. So I would say he's probably feeling satisfactory, but I don't know David Stearns. I imagine he's a competitor that wants more than just being satisfactory. But I would say for his first season and the expectations, externally coming into the season, I imagine he feels satisfied that what he thought has played out the way he expected it to.
Yeah, Keith, for you, at this point, would you consider the Mets making the playoffs a win for the organization, or would you be disappointed if they don't make a deep run?
Well, I think, again, it all goes back to how we thought this was going to go down versus how it is actually going down. And we thought maybe a couple games over 500, the way the NL's been shaken out last few years, see if we can sneak in 4 games over. The Mets are 12 games over 500, and they're a half game out. As this season has asked for more and more from the National League, where you've seen the top of the wild card separate from the bottom, the Mets have kind of followed right along. This season is a huge win, in my opinion, for what's happened now. But I get the chance to talk to Carlos Mendoza every single day for our manager's show for our radio broadcasts. And he keeps saying, as good as this is, we haven't done anything yet. And that to me is the sound of somebody that's super competitive, that David Stearns hired to put in that clubhouse to push when a push is needed. And that's what Carlos kind of said. And that's where the clubhouse is. They're 12 games over and they feel like they haven't done enough. So getting in for all of us, what a win. For them, they want more. And you can't ask for anything better if you're a fan.
Yeah, you've got to love playing for a guy like Carlos Mendoza as well. All right, guys, let's look ahead just a little bit. The Mets play the Reds and the Blue Jays before their next off day. They're currently a half game behind the Braves and 3 games behind the Diamondbacks, 3.5 behind the Padres in the NL wildcard race. So, Joe, which team between the Braves, Diamondbacks, or Padres will be easier for the Mets to catch for the final NL wildcard spot?
Well, I'm a math guy. They're the closest to the Braves, so that would be the easiest team to catch. But I think when you look across the schedules coming up for, all the teams that are still remaining in the race, the Diamondbacks have a tough go of it for the rest of the season. And they're dealt with injuries to Ketel Marte and Lourdes Gurriel. I know they just got Christian Walker back, but they're going through it a bit on the injury front, as Atlanta has all year. And it's, a credit to Brian Snitker and the players on that team, because, losing the likes of Ronald Acuna and Spencer Strider and Austin Riley and still being in a playoff spot just shows, the way that team is put together. But ultimately, the team that's the closest to you is Atlanta, and you got 3 games left against them. That feels like the team that they have the target on their back, and the Mets are going for it.
Right. And so, Keith, for you, do you think the Mets will have to essentially win every game to catch these teams, or do you expect any of these teams to slip up at all?
Yeah, I mean, truly, the Mets schedule, too, is not easy. I mean, you have 7 games with the Phillies left, and the Phillies are trying to be that team after an amazing start and a weak summer to finish strong in September. They just took a big series from Atlanta, so they're getting hot. And you have 3 at their place, 4 at Citi Field. Those are tough. The Mets get in, they're going to earn it. And I'm kind of with Joe, is that you want to probably leap that first team before you think about leaping everybody else. But I get the question of who may fall. I'm still blown away at how the Braves are hanging in there. They pitch really, really well. They have Chris Sale, who's probably maybe going to win the Cy Young. And that pitching staff is keeping that team afloat. They don't have Acuna. Albies is hurt. Riley probably done for the regular season. And we look up at the scoreboard. The Mets are winning. The Braves are winning every night. I mean, how much longer can this last? And like Joe said, maybe this 3-game set in Atlanta will avenge the 3-game set in 2022 where the Mets needed to win 1. This is going to have that same last week of the season feel. So the Mets will be able to maybe control their own destiny if they get to that point.